There was a time when the front door was the busiest place in the American home. A knock could come at any hour of the daylight. It might be a man with a suitcase full of brushes. It might be a boy with the afternoon paper. It might be a woman with a case of cosmetics, or a man in a clean uniform holding a set of encyclopedias that promised to make your children smarter than you ever were. You did not order these people. They came to you. They walked your street, climbed your steps, and stood on your porch, and for a few minutes the whole world arrived at your doorway. It was how goods were sold, how services were delivered, and how a family without a car stayed supplied with everything from milk to medicine. Today, almost no one knocks. The doorbell rings only for a package left by a stranger who is already back in the truck. But for most of the 20th century, and right through the 1960s, an entire economy lived and breathed on the front step. Today, we are going to walk through 20 of those door-to-door jobs. Some of them made men wealthy. Some of them were simply how a neighborhood took care of itself. All of them were completely normal, and all of them are gone. Let us begin. Number 20. The Fuller Brush Man. He is the one most people remember first because he became the very picture of the door-to-door trade. The Fuller Brush Man carried a case filled with brushes for every purpose in the house, along with brooms, mops, and cleaning goods, and he demonstrated each one right there in your front hall. He was trained never to leave a doorstep empty-handed, and often he gave away a small brush just for opening the door, so that the next time he came, you would remember him kindly. The company drilled its men in courtesy and in patience, teaching them to sell by being useful rather than pushy. And a great many of them built relationships with the families on their routes that lasted for years. A good Fuller man knew every household, every name, and every need, and he earned a real living on commission alone, with no wage to fall back on and no ceiling to hold him down. He became so common a sight that he turned up in cartoons and films, the friendly salesman with the sample case, a shorthand the whole country understood at a glance. When shopping moved to the discount stores and the same goods appeared on the shelves at lower prices, the knock stopped paying and the case closed for good. Number 19. The Avon Lady. Where the Fuller man sold brushes, the Avon lady sold beauty. She was almost always a woman from the neighborhood herself, and that was the whole idea. She sold cosmetics, perfume, and lotions to the other women on her street, in their kitchens, over coffee, in a way that felt like a visit rather than a sale. For countless American women, it was one of the first ways to earn their own money without leaving the family behind, and the phrase Avon calling became known in nearly every home in the country. A woman could take on a route while her children were at school, set her own hours, and build something that was entirely hers in an era that offered women very few such chances. She sold not just lipstick and lotion, but a few minutes of company to housewives who spent their days alone, and many of her customers were also her friends. She built her business on trust, one doorway and one cup of coffee at a time. The trade thrived for decades before the mall cosmetics counter, and much later the internet slowly took its place, but for a long generation of women it was independence carried in a small sample case. Number 18. The encyclopedia salesman. Of all the men who knocked, none sold a bigger dream than the encyclopedia salesman. He did not sell books. He sold the future of your children. He sat in your living room, opened a heavy sample volume across the coffee table, and explained that everything a young person needed to succeed in life was contained in these pages. The sets cost a great deal of money, often paid off slowly over months and years, but for a working family that wanted more for the next generation than it had been given, it felt like an investment in hope itself. Parents who had left school early to work signed those contracts so their children would not have to. The salesman understood this, and the best of them sold not with pressure, but with a shared belief in a better future. A skilled encyclopedia man could earn more than a school teacher, more than a banker, more than most of the fathers he sat across from. When the home computer arrived, and then the internet put the whole of human knowledge onto a glowing screen for almost nothing, the great bound sets lost their purpose, and the men who carried them from door to door quietly disappeared. Number 17. The milkman. Before the supermarket and the home refrigerator changed everything, milk came to the door. The milkman arrived before dawn, left cold glass bottles on the step, and collected the empties from the day before. He knew how many children lived in each house and adjusted the order without being asked. He was so trusted that families left him notes and sometimes a key. An extra quart when company was coming. Cream on the holidays. He was part of the rhythm of the street, the first sound of the morning. Home refrigeration and the rise of the grocery store ended his route over a single generation, and one morning the bottles simply stopped appearing. Number 16. The vegetable and produce peddler. In the cities and older neighborhoods, a man came through with a cart or a small truck loaded with fresh fruit and vegetables, calling out what he had that day. Housewives came down to the street with their baskets and chose from the back of his wagon, and he weighed it out and made change from his apron. He brought the market to the block for families who could not easily get to it, and the produce was often picked that very morning. His call became part of the sound of the neighborhood in summer. Supermarkets with their endless aisles and the spread of the family automobile ended his rounds, and the calling faded from the streets. Number 15. The knife and scissors grinder. He walked or rode through the neighborhood with a grinding wheel, ringing a bell or calling out, and housewives brought their dull knives, scissors, and garden tools out to the curb. He sharpened each one on the spinning stone, sparks flying, and handed it back keen enough to shave with for a few cents apiece. It was a real skill, and in an age when a good knife was meant to last a lifetime. It was a service every household needed. Cheap, replaceable blades and the throwaway habits of a wealthier country ended the trade. Today, the sound of that bell coming down the street would stop everyone in their tracks, because no one has heard it in 50 years. Number 14. The ice delivery man. Before the milkman there was the iceman, and before the refrigerator there was the icebox. The ice delivery man hauled great blocks of ice up the porch steps and into the kitchen on his shoulder, wrapped in canvas, the cold water running down his back. Families put a printed card in the front window telling him how many pounds they needed, and he read the cards from the street. It was some of the hardest delivery work there was, and it built men like oak. The electric refrigerator ended the trade almost entirely by the early 1950s, but for families who kept the old ways longer, the iceman was knocking well into the era we are talking about. Number 13. The Watkins man and the Raleigh man. These were the traveling sellers of household remedies, spices, and extracts, and they were fixtures of small-town and rural America. The Watkins man and the Raleigh man came to the door with cases of vanilla, liniment, salves, cough syrups, and cooking spices, products a farm family could not easily buy anywhere else. In the countryside, where the nearest store might be many miles away, these men were a lifeline, and they were welcomed like old friends. They often covered the same rural route for years and knew every family on it. Better roads, the family car, and the reach of the modern store slowly made the traveling remedy man unnecessary, and his route dissolved into the distance. Number 12. The insurance man. Life insurance in those years was often sold and collected in person, a few cents or a few dollars at a time. right at the kitchen table. The insurance man, sometimes called the debit man, walked his route every week, knocked on each door, marked the payment in his little book, and moved on to the next house. For working families who lived close to the edge, this weekly visit was how they made sure there would be enough for a decent burial and a little cushion if the worst happened. The insurance man knew the families through good times and bad, births and deaths alike. Automatic bank payments and mailed billing ended the weekly knock, and the little collection book was closed. Number 11. The bread and bakery man. Fresh bread, rolls, cakes, and pastries came to the door on a route delivered from a truck that smelled of the ovens it came from. The bakery man carried a tray of that morning's baking up the walk, and the family chose what they wanted for the week, warm and fresh, without ever going to a shop. In many neighborhoods he came several times a week, and the children learned the sound of his truck the way they learned the ice cream man's. Supermarkets with their own in-store bakeries, and the long-life packaged loaf ended the route. The smell of a bakery truck coming down the street became a memory. Number 10. The vacuum cleaner salesman. Closely related to the Fuller man, but he sold one thing, and he sold it hard. The vacuum cleaner salesman carried his machine right up to your door and asked for the chance to demonstrate it on your own carpet. He would scatter a little dirt or dust and show you how much your current cleaner had been leaving behind. It was a bold, theatrical kind of selling, part demonstration and part performance, and the best men could turn a skeptical housewife into a buyer in the space of a single visit, often on an installment plan that made the price feel small. The machines were expensive and built to last for decades, and a truly gifted salesman, one who could read a room and close a sale, earned very well indeed. It was a trade that rewarded confidence, persistence, and a thick skin, and it made a good living for men who had little else but their nerve. The shopping mall and the discount store eventually gave people somewhere to walk in and buy a vacuum for themselves, at their own pace and with no one watching, and the demonstration on the living room floor came quietly to an end. Number 9. The newspaper boy. Every afternoon and every early morning, a boy on a bicycle threw the paper onto porches up and down his route, then came around at the end of the week to collect what each family owed. It was the classic first job of American boyhood, a lesson in responsibility, weather, and dealing with people, all before the age of 13. The paper route taught a generation of boys how to work, how to save, and how to knock on a door and ask, politely, to be paid what they were owed. They learned to ride in the rain and the snow, to fold a paper one-handed, to keep a book of who had paid and who had not, and to face a grown stranger and stand their ground. It was steady money and a rite of passage at once, and for many boys it was the first dollar they ever earned with their own hands. Adult drivers running whole neighborhoods from a car, and eventually the long decline of the printed newspaper itself ended the boy on the bicycle. The route that raised so many, that taught so many their first hard lessons about work and money and people, is nearly gone now. Number 8. The diaper serviceman. Before disposable diapers were common, families with a new baby used cloth, and a service came to collect the soiled diapers and deliver clean, fresh ones in their place, on a regular route. The diaper serviceman handled the part of new parenthood that no one wanted to think about, and he did it reliably, week after week. For a young mother with an infant and no easy way to keep up with the washing, it was a genuine relief and a common household expense. It was an entire industry built on a weekly knock at the door. The disposable diaper, which spread quickly through the 1960s and 70s, ended the service almost completely. Number 7. The photographer who came to you. Traveling portrait photographers went door to door, especially in the years when a family portrait was a treasured and expensive thing. Some specialized in children, some in whole families, and some famously led a pony from house to house so that every child on the block could be photographed sitting proudly in the saddle. For families who would never have gone to a studio, the traveling photographer captured the only formal pictures they would ever own. Images that now sit in albums and on mantels as the last record of people long gone. The cheap home camera, and later the camera in every pocket, ended the traveling photographer's knock. But the portraits he made survived him. Number 6. The Jewel Tea Man. The Jewel Tea Man ran one of the most beloved home routes in the country, delivering coffee, tea, groceries, and household goods, and famously rewarding loyal customers with premiums, the dishes and housewares that many families collected piece by piece over years. He was part deliveryman, part salesman, and part familiar friend, and his regular visit was something housewives looked forward to. The dishes he brought as rewards became keepsakes, handed down in families to this day. The supermarket and the changing shape of American shopping ended the route, but the dishes remain in china cabinets across the country, quiet reminders of a man who came to the door. Number 5. The Tinker and the Umbrella Mender. In the older tradition, a tinker came through mending pots and pans, resoldering leaks, and repairing the metal household goods that a thrifty family kept for decades rather than replacing. Alongside him, in some places, came the man who mended umbrellas and repaired small broken things. In an age when almost nothing was thrown away, these menders kept a household running, and their arrival meant a day of small repairs done at the curb. Cheap mass-manufactured goods, made to be replaced rather than repaired, ended the trade. When it became cheaper to buy a new pot than to mend the old one, the tinker had nothing left to fix. Number 4. The Bottled Water and Seltzer Man. In many neighborhoods, especially in the cities, a man delivered bottled seltzer and water in heavy glass siphon bottles, collected the empties, and left full ones in their place. The seltzer man was a familiar figure, hauling his wooden cases up the stairs, and the charged water he brought was a small daily luxury. The distinctive bottles became part of the kitchen and part of family memory. Store-bought bottled drinks, and the changing tastes of a new generation ended the route. The heavy siphon bottles, once on every counter, became antiques almost overnight. Number 3. The Coal Delivery Man. Before oil and gas heat became standard, many homes were warmed by coal, and the coal man delivered it, pouring it down a chute into the cellar bin, load after heavy load. He came covered in black dust, doing some of the dirtiest and most physically punishing delivery work of all. He kept families warm through the hardest winters, and in the cold months his arrival was one of the most important knocks a household could hear. A missed delivery meant a cold house and cold children, so the coal man's reliability was not a convenience, but a necessity, and families measured the coming winter by whether the bin was full. He did this work in every kind of weather, black to the elbows, for wages that never matched the difficulty of it. The spread of clean, automatic oil, gas, and electric heating slowly ended the trade, and the coal chute and the cellar bin, once in so many homes, were sealed up, painted over, and forgotten within a generation. Number 2. The Scissors of the Season. The Seasonal Specialist. Beyond the year-round routes, there were sellers who came only in their season, and they were part of the calendar of the year. The man who sold Christmas trees door to door in December. The seed and nursery man who came in spring with plants and bulbs for the garden. The man who sharpened lawn-mower blades as the grass began to grow. Each one arrived like a signal that the season had turned, and families waited for them. They wove the trade of the doorstep into the rhythm of the whole year. Garden centers, seasonal store displays, and the family car ended these visits, and the turning of the seasons lost one of its old familiar knocks. Number 1. the neighbor who simply knocked. This is not a paid trade at all, and that is exactly the point. The most vanished thing on this entire list is the plainest one. In those years, a neighbor knocked on your door without calling first, without a reason, without an appointment. To borrow a cup of sugar, to bring a plate of something they had baked too much of, to sit on the porch and talk as the afternoon went by. The endless parade of salesmen and delivery men and paper boys was only possible because the front door was open to the world in a way it no longer is. People expected knocks. They welcomed them. The doorway was a meeting place, not a barrier. When the door-to-door trades vanished, one machine and one supermarket at a time, they took something larger with them. They took the habit of the knock itself, and a home that once opened to the whole street learned, slowly, to keep its door closed. These men and women are not entirely forgotten. Somewhere tonight, an old milk bottle sits on a shelf, a set of jewel tea dishes waits in a cabinet, a faded portrait of a child on a pony hangs in a hallway. Each one is the trace of someone who once came to the door. If your family remembers one of these visitors, the fuller brush man on your grandmother's porch, the Avon lady at the kitchen table, the paper boy on his bicycle, tell us about them in the comments below. Tell us who came to your door, and what they brought, and the town where they came. These trades live longest in the memories of the people who opened the door to them. This has been Vanished America. Thank you for spending this time with us. Subscribe, and we will keep these memories alive together.